And for our next story, I want to start by asking a question. Have movies these days become too violent? Has it all become too much? If yes, why are they so popular? What attracts people to violent movies? I ask this question because recently a Bollywood movie has sparked a massive debate. How much violence is too much violence in movies? I'm talking about the movie Animal. The Ranbir Kapoor starrer, it's turned out to be a massive hit among the audience. However, a section of the society is furious. They have a bone to pick with the extreme violence in the movie. Described as a gritty crime thriller, this movie features intense sexual and domestic abuse. In fact, the movie is so violent at times that the British Censor Board has rated it 18, which means that it's suitable only for adults. According to the British Censor Board's website, this movie scores high on violence. In fact, the debate has reached the Indian Parliament. Congress MP Ranjit Ranjan emerged as a vocal critic of the film. During parliamentary debate, Ranjan highlighted the film's contentious themes. The member of the parliament voiced concerns about the potential impact of such content on the impressionable minds of the youth. She said that her daughter, as well as other children, were left visibly distraught and had to leave the movie hall midway. Now, Ranjan said, and I'm quoting here, the film's endorsement of violence and misogyny is disgraceful. So what is so controversial about this movie? After all, violence in cinema, it's not a new concept. Just look at South Korea's award-winning TV series Squid Games or Quentin Tarantino's movie Pulp Fiction. Even in Bollywood, you have Gangs of Wasseypur, Sangharsh, NH10, Khajni. So what sets this new movie, Animal, apart? The film, directed by Sandeep Reddy Vanga, chronicles a toxic father-son relationship. It is set against the backdrop of crime and the underworld. Again, not new themes. Since its release, the film has collected nearly 700 crore rupees in the box office. But despite stellar performances from the cast, it is facing backlash for its toxic characters and the problematic scenes. Scenes of frenzied stabbing, men striking, humiliating, coercing women and children. Fight scenes with guns and blades, the most disturbing of all, are scenes portraying sexual violence against women. While this is not new in movies, this particular Bollywood movie is being slammed for promoting misogyny and toxic masculinity. It has sparked questions about the responsibility of storytellers, and why shouldn't it? After all, cinema has a social impact. It is a tool of change, of inspiration, of culture. It shapes views and opinions. Movies have an impact on impressionable audiences. Now, according to experts, these hyper-violent movies offer a variety of reasons to be drawn to them. A sense of catharsis, a sense of thrill. It allows fans of such movies to blow off some steam vicariously through the characters' actions. Through intense and graphic violence, we see characters take down multiple enemies ruthlessly. We end up rooting for them. Yet, there's a fine line between empowerment and toxicity. Some studies suggest that watching violent films can desensitize people to violence, while others suggest that the relationship between film violence and real-world violence, it's more complex than that. It's not clear whether watching violent films actually helps people to confront their own violent impulses, or does it simply reinforce those impulses and makes violence more socially acceptable. Therefore, it's important to recognize that the kind of violence portrayed in these films is not viable or healthy. Instead, we need to work towards creating a society that provides people with positive outlets for their frustration and anger, rather than glorification of violence and aggression. Filmmakers also have that responsibility. Instead of using violence to tell the story must show violence with a disclaimer, a message that violence is not the key. In conclusion, the appeal of aggressive films is complex. It reflects broader cultural attitude towards hypermasculinity, towards violence. While these films can offer a sense of catharsis, it's important to remember it can also reinforce negative, harmful messages. And that's where you draw the line. Now imagine this. You've had a long, tiring day. It's time to unwind. Your bros have come over. You decide to enjoy some chicken wings with a football game on. What drink would you crave? A chilled can of beer? Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Now imagine this. Instead of a football game, what if it was a girls' get-together? A session to spill the tea, enjoy a rom-com. Would we be thinking of a beer still? Probably not. A fruity cocktail? Maybe. Because those are the stereotypes. And they exist because of the overtly masculine marketing of beers. It's not just marketing. The whole beer brewing industry is now dominated by men. But what if I told you women were the original beer brewers? You may find this hard to believe, but here's a look into history. For centuries, beer was considered a staple beverage. It was an affordable way to consume and preserve grains. From the Vikings to the Egyptians, people relied on beers to quench their thirst. In fact, there was a time when even children were allowed to take a swig or two. For the working class, beer provided an important source of nutrients. It was full of carbohydrates and proteins. And what happens when something becomes a part of a daily meal? When it's just another household chore? It falls on the shoulders of the homemaker. It becomes a woman's job. So women brewed. For religious ceremonies, for their homes, eventually for business as well. Yes, some enterprising women took this household skill to the marketplace. They began selling beer. Widows, unmarried women used this fermentation prowess to earn some extra money. Married women partnered with their husbands to run a business. Now, if you go back in time to the Renaissance, let's say to a market in England, according to some historians, this is what you would see. Women wearing tall, pointy hats. They'd often be seen standing in front of big cauldrons. But these women were no witches. They were brewers. The hats made them stand out, to their customers in a crowded marketplace. Cauldrons were meant to easily transport beer, and those who sold out of stores had cats, not as demon familiars, but to keep mice away from the grain. But as women were establishing their foothold in the beer markets, the Reformation began. The fundamentalist religious movement preached stricter gender norms. And when ale houses opened, production moved away from home into the factories. Eventually, beer became commercialized. And with that, it moved firmly into the hands of men. They had the financial, cultural, and legal resources to conquer such a quickly expanding industry. And so began the Boys Club. Just how male-dominated is American craft brewery ownership, though? According to 2021 data, the answer is 3-1. That's right. 76% of the brewery owners in the United States are men. Out of some 8,000 breweries in the United States, women only own 160. That accounts for about 2%. Let's now keep ownership aside. Let's focus on the quality. How do you judge the quality of a craft beer? Apparently, the sex of the brewer plays an important role here as well. That's what studies tell us. Researchers of the Stanford University conducted an interesting experiment. They chose two products, craft beer and cupcakes. Participants were shown a label from a fictitious craft beer. They were then asked to judge the quality of the beer. A fictitious brewer's name appeared on the label. Half of the participants were shown a female name. The other half was shown a male name. Other than that, the labels were identical. What were the results? When participants believed the brewer was a woman, they said that they would pay less for the beer. They also had lower expectations of the taste and quality of the beer. And guess what? When the same experiment was repeated for the cupcakes, male cupcake bakers did not suffer the same fate as the female brewers. Cupcakes baked by both men and women received similar reviews. Turns out bias only exists when women jump into male-dominated jobs and not the other way around. But it's not all bad. Things are changing. Women are now entering the craft beer business, especially in the UK. Companies are waking up to the reality that inclusivity is actually profitable. Some brands are marketing their beers in a more conventionally feminine way. If you see a beer can in pastel and jewel-toned packaging, don't be surprised. And those who still believe that beer brewing is a man's job, well, maybe it's about time they took a history lesson. Now, what would you say are some of the latent stressors in your life that are impeding on your ability to better regulate stress and anxiety? Well, let's delve into some surprising modern-day stressors that are impacting our mental and physical health in ways you would have probably never imagined. Recent studies shine a light on the hidden dangers of comfort eating and long commutes. Let's break these down for you. Now, first stop is the kitchen. Let's also talk about commuting. It's something most of us cannot avoid, but did you know that it could be affecting your mental health? A recent study in South Korea published in the Journal of Transport and Health, it's found a strong link between long commutes and poor mental health. Dong-Wook Lee, a public health researcher, along with his colleagues, analyzed data from over 23,000 people. and found that those who commute for more than an hour are 16% more likely to experience depressive symptoms compared to those with shorter commutes of under 30 minutes. Long commutes were found to leave little time for physical activity, leading to issues like being overweight, increased alcohol consumption, and poor sleep quality. Additionally, the air pollution inhaled during traffic can raise blood pressure as well, further aggravating stress and mental health issues. Interestingly, the link between hour-plus commutes and poor mental health was most among unmarried men, those working over 52 hours per week and those without children. Among women, the most affected were low-income workers, shift workers and those with children. On the flip side, the study found that switching to active transport, that's cycling or walking, that improved mental health. So what's the takeaway? While we often can't avoid certain stressors like commuting or the occasional comfort binge, being aware of their potential impact on our health is crucial. It's about finding balance and healthier ways to cope with stress.